I didn't confront them. I didn't wave or call their names. I just stood there, frozen, holding my economy boarding pass, watching my own family laugh together behind the first-class counter. 2 weeks earlier, they had looked me in the eye and said, "Money is tight. We can't afford to take you." That moment at the airport was when something inside me finally cracked. Stay with me, because what happened after that call changed the way I saw my family forever. Before I take you back to that airport, you need to understand who I was in my family long before that day. My name is Stephanie Parker. I'm 30 years old, and I live in Austin, Texas. I work as a project coordinator for an energy company. It's a normal 9-to-5 job. I'm not rich, but I'm stable. I pay my rent on time, I'm slowly chipping away at my student loans, and I track my spending on a spreadsheet because I like knowing exactly where my money goes. I've always believed that if you're careful, you'll be okay. My parents have never lived that way. For as long as I can remember, their lives have hovered in a constant state of almost broke. My dad stopped working early due to health issues, and my mom works part-time. My older brother, Jason, lives with his wife and 2 kids in Katy, Texas. In my mother's eyes, Jason is the responsible one because he has a family and a mortgage. I am the independent one, the one without kids, the one who can handle things. In our family, there was an unspoken rule. When something went wrong, I was the one who fixed it. If the electricity bill was overdue, my mom would call with that shaky voice and say, "Honey, I hate to ask, but could you help us just this once?" When my niece needed money for a school activity or my nephew wanted to join a sports team, Jason would text me, "We're really tight this month. Anything helps." That month somehow lasted for years. I told myself this was what family did. I skipped vacations. I skipped big plans. Every time I tried to save, another emergency appeared, and I stepped in because that's who I was. Then, a few months ago, my company announced there would be no bonuses this year. No raises. Just stability. It scared me more than I wanted to admit. I realized I was almost 30, and I'd never taken a real vacation for myself. That was when I thought, maybe we could finally do something together as a family. Nothing fancy. A few days somewhere warm. I was even willing to help cover some of the costs. So one evening, during what I thought was a casual call, I said, "What if we planned a small family trip this summer?" My mom didn't hesitate. Her answer came out fast, like it had been practiced. "We're really struggling right now. Money is tight. We can't afford to take you on vacation." Before I could respond, Jason laughed. Not a friendly laugh. That sharp, joking, not joking laugh. "Yeah, Steph," he said. "It would save us a lot if you just stayed home." I remember forcing a smile even though no one could see me. I said, "Yeah, sure, I get it." Because that's what I always said. That night, I convinced myself they must really be struggling. I told myself skipping one vacation wasn't a big deal. I booked a small solo trip to New York using credit card points and promised myself I didn't need more than that. What I didn't know was that their version of tight and mine were not the same thing at all. When the day of my flight arrived, I stood in the economy line at the airport, scrolling through my phone, thinking about pizza and walking through the city. Then I heard a laugh I knew too well. I turned my head, and there they were. My parents, Jason, his wife, the kids. Relaxed, smiling, standing at the first-class check-in counter, like money had never been a problem. My mom was holding a coffee. Jason was chatting confidently with the airline agent. The kids were waving their boarding passes in the air, excited and loud. I watched my niece point at the sign and ask, "Does this mean we get the big seats?" Jason laughed and said, "That's right." That was the moment I understood something I had refused to see for years. They weren't broke. They just didn't want to spend their money on me. Before I continue, I want to know something. Where are you listening from right now? Tell me your city or your country, because this story might feel very familiar to you. I told myself the New York trip was enough. It was small, controlled, and practical, which was how I had learned to live my life. I booked the flight with credit card points, packed a single carry-on, and arranged to sleep on a friend's couch. No resorts, no matching family photos, no promises I couldn't keep to myself. I wasn't chasing luxury, I just wanted air. I wanted to feel like my life belonged to me for a few days. The morning of my flight, Austin was already warm. The kind of heat that sticks to your skin before noon. I rolled my suitcase through the automatic doors of Austin Bergstrom Airport and joined the long economy line without thinking twice. This was familiar territory. Middle seats, delayed boarding, pretending I didn't care when I absolutely did. I was scrolling through my phone, half listening to boarding announcements, when I heard a laugh that made my shoulders tense before my mind could catch up. It was Jason's laugh. Loud, confident, meant to be heard. For a second, I told myself I was imagining it. Airports are full of echoes and strangers who sound familiar. But then I heard my mother say his name, clear as day, and my stomach dropped. I turned my head slowly, like if I moved too fast the moment might shatter. They were standing at the first-class check-in counter. My parents, Jason, his wife. The kids clustered around them, bouncing with energy. My mom leaned casually against a sleek suitcase, holding a coffee like this was routine. Jason was talking to the airline agent with that relaxed tone he uses when he's trying to charm his way through something. His wife was adjusting her phone, lining up a photo, already smiling. I didn't move. I couldn't. My niece waved her boarding pass in the air and asked, "Does this mean we get the big seats?" Jason laughed and said, "That's right. We're doing this trip right." My mom smiled and added, "After everything we've been through, we deserve something nice." I stood there in my worn sneakers and hoodie, clutching my economy boarding pass, feeling like the floor had tilted beneath me. There was no stress on their faces, no tight smiles, no whispered conversations about budgets or bills. They looked rested, excited, like a family in a travel ad. For a brief, humiliating moment, I wondered if I was wrong, if maybe something had changed overnight. Maybe there had been a refund, a miracle, a last-minute deal that made everything make sense. I watched the agent tag their bags, and that was when I saw it. Orlando, Florida. The exact kind of trip I had suggested. The kind I was told didn't fit the budget. The kind I was too expensive to join. My chest tightened and my legs moved before my brain could argue. I turned away. I didn't wave. I didn't call out. I didn't walk over and ask questions I already knew the answers to. I let the economy line carry me forward while they were directed to priority security, stepping past the rope with ease. On the plane, I was wedged into a middle seat between two strangers. The guy to my left fell asleep almost immediately. The woman to my right kept tapping at her laptop. I stared straight ahead, replaying the scene over and over, trying to find a version where it didn't hurt as much. I told myself they hadn't seen me, that it wasn't personal, that maybe they thought inviting me would complicate things. But beneath every excuse was a truth that refused to stay quiet. They could afford it. They just didn't want to afford me. As the plane lifted off, I felt something shift inside my chest. Not anger yet, something colder, something clearer. For years, I had rearranged my life to make room for their emergencies, their stress, their version of responsibility. I had believed that being left out was temporary, that my turn would come later. Sitting there, listening to the hum of the engine, I understood that later had never been part of their plan. I closed my eyes and let the plane carry me away, knowing that when I landed, I wouldn't be the same person who had boarded. The heat hit me the moment I stepped back into Austin, heavy and familiar, but I barely noticed it. I dropped my bag by the door of my apartment and stood there for a long second, listening to the silence. No voices, no requests, no one needing anything from me. My phone buzzed before I could even sit down. It was my mom. Normally, I would have answered without thinking, already bracing myself, already reaching for that calm, reassuring tone I always used. This time, I let it ring once, twice. When I picked up, I kept my voice neutral. "Hey, Mom." She sounded almost relieved. Too relieved. She asked about my trip, if New York was nice, if my flight went smoothly. Her cheerfulness felt thin, stretched tight over something else. I gave short answers, careful not to offer more than necessary. Then, just like it always did, her voice shifted. "Stephanie, I hate to even bring this up," she said, lowering her tone. "Things have been really hard since your dad's last appointment. The gas bill is overdue, and the bank called again about the house. We're really struggling. Do you think you could help us out just this once?" That phrase landed like it always had. Just this once. I took a breath and felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not panic, not guilt, but clarity. "Mom," I said evenly, "were things this tight when you booked first-class tickets to Orlando?" The line went quiet. Not dropped, not muted. Just empty, like the air had been sucked out of the conversation. "What are you talking about?" she finally asked, her voice flatter now. "I saw you," I said. "At the airport. You, Dad, Jason, the kids, first-class check-in, Orlando tags on your bags." She let out a small laugh that didn't sound like relief or humor. It sounded like scrambling. "Oh, that?" she said quickly. "It wasn't what you think. Jason had miles, and there were points involved. It was a complicated situation. We needed something nice after everything we've been dealing with." I listened without interrupting as she piled excuse on top of excuse, each one designed to soften the truth. When she finally paused, I spoke. "I'm not upset that you went on vacation," I said. "I'm upset that you told me we couldn't afford to take me, like I was the problem. You made me feel like a burden." She sighed, then tried a different angle. "You don't have kids, Stephanie. You're independent. We thought you'd understand." There it was. The sentence that had followed me for years. "You'll understand. You'll manage. You'll be fine." "I do understand," I said quietly. "I understand that when it comes to me, there's suddenly nothing left." She didn't respond right away, and I knew she was recalculating, trying to find the version of the conversation where I folded. I didn't. We hung up not angry, not resolved, but exposed. My hands were shaking, but my decision didn't waver. Less than an hour later, my phone lit up again. "Jason." I stared at his name until the screen dimmed, then answered. "What is wrong with you?" he snapped before I could say anything. "Mom is freaking out. She says you're cutting her off." "I'm not cutting anyone off," I said. "I'm setting a boundary." He laughed sharply. "A boundary? Dad is sick. The mortgage is behind. You really think now is the time to make a point?" "I've been making points for years," I replied. "You just didn't hear them because I kept paying." His jaw tightened. "You don't have kids," he said, like it was a verdict. "You don't know what real responsibility looks like." I felt the old instinct rise, the urge to explain myself, to justify my choices, to list everything I'd done. Instead, I spoke slowly, deliberately. "You're right. I don't have kids. That's exactly why I'm not responsible for yours." There was silence on his end, followed by disbelief. "Wow," he said. "That's selfish." "Selfish," I repeated, steady. "Is taking first-class trips and calling me broke when I ask to be included. Selfish is using my money for the boring parts of life and cutting me out of the good ones." He started listing reasons, miles, deals, timing, stress. None of it answered the question I didn't bother to repeat anymore. "I'm done sending money," I said. "No more covering bills, no more emergencies. You'll need to figure things out without me." "You're really going to watch us struggle?" he shot back. I closed my eyes. "You watched me struggle quietly for years. I'm just not doing it anymore." When the call ended, my apartment felt different. Heavier. Lighter. I wasn't sure which yet, but for the first time, I wasn't reaching for my bank app. I wasn't calculating what I could give without breaking myself. I was sitting still, and that felt like a line I couldn't cross back over. 2 weeks passed without a word. No calls asking for help. No texts wrapped in guilt. The silence felt unnatural, like the calm before a storm you know is coming, but still hope might miss you. I told myself it was good. Necessary. Then my phone rang late one afternoon, and the sound alone told me everything had changed. It was my mom. Her voice was different this time. Not careful, not rehearsed. Raw in a way I had never heard before. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't soften the edges. "Stephanie," she said, and I could hear that she'd been crying for hours. "The bank sent a final notice. We're in real trouble." I sat down slowly, gripping the edge of the couch. I didn't interrupt her. I had learned that when people are desperate, they reveal more than they intend to. "We're 3 months behind on the mortgage," she continued, words tumbling out fast. "Your dad's medical bills wiped out what little we had saved. We thought we could catch up. We thought things would turn around." She didn't say my name again, but I heard it anyway. "We thought you would step in." For a moment, memories flooded me. That house. The front porch, where I learned to ride a bike. The kitchen where my mom used to bake on Sunday mornings. The hallway with the dent in the wall from when Jason and I played too rough as kids. My chest tightened, and grief pressed against my ribs. Old me would have panicked. I would have opened my laptop, pulled out numbers, asked how much they needed and by when. I would have started rearranging my future to save their past. Instead, I asked one question. When did you miss the first payment? There was a pause. A long one. Long enough to be an answer all by itself. It's been a while, she admitted quietly. We were juggling cards, waiting on Jason's commissions, hoping insurance would cover more. We didn't think it would get this bad so fast. And you still went to Orlando, I said, my voice calm in a way that surprised even me. She snapped, the grief flipping instantly into anger. We needed that trip. Your father was depressed. The kids were disappointed. We thought if we just had one good week, we could come back and deal with everything. I closed my eyes, letting her words settle. This didn't happen in 2 weeks. This wasn't because I said no once. This was years of choices stacked on top of each other, cushioned by my silence and my money. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said, but this isn't mine to fix. She cried harder, reminding me of everything that house meant, of how my dad had worked so hard, of the family we were supposed to be. Each memory was a hook, cast carefully, hoping one would catch. If you don't help us, she said, her voice breaking, we could lose everything. I swallowed. You already were, I replied gently. You just didn't feel it yet. When the call ended, my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from grief. I mourned the house, the version of my parents I wanted to believe in, the idea that love and honesty had guided their choices. But beneath the sadness was something solid. Resolve. The consequences didn't arrive all at once. They crept in. A cousin mentioned that my parents had put the house on the market. A realtor's sign went up in front of the place I grew up, and for the first time, there was no story that could soften what it meant. Jason called once, not to apologize, but to complain about how unfair everything felt. Over time, I saw the changes from a distance. Jason sold his SUV and downsized to a smaller place. The kids were pulled from activities they once took for granted. The tone on social media shifted from celebration to vague posts about hard times and betrayal. I felt the guilt try to rise, the familiar pull to step in and make it stop. Then I remembered the airport, the laughter, the certainty with which they said they deserved something nice. I didn't cause this, I just stopped absorbing it. One evening, I opened my banking app and stared at the numbers. For the first time in years, they reflected only my choices. My bills, my savings, my future. No hidden obligations disguised as love. It hurt to watch their life shrink. It hurt to know I could change it. But it would have cost me everything to do so. That was when I understood the line I had finally drawn. Love does not require self-destruction. And saving someone from consequences they refuse to face is not kindness. It is erasure. I stayed where I was, even when it hurt, because stepping back was the only way I could finally stand on my own. The changes didn't arrive with fireworks or dramatic confrontations. They arrived quietly, almost politely, as if my life was asking permission before settling into something new. Without the constant emergencies, my days felt strangely open. My phone stayed silent in the evenings. No messages marked urgent. No calls that started with an apology and ended with a request. At first, that silence made me uneasy. I had spent so long being needed that not being needed felt like something was wrong. Then, I slept through the night for the first time in years. I stopped waking up with my jaw clenched and my mind racing through numbers. I drank my coffee slowly in the mornings. I cooked real meals instead of eating whatever was fastest between problems that weren't mine. I opened my banking app one evening and realized I hadn't transferred money to anyone in weeks. The balance didn't scare me, it steadied me. At work, something shifted too. Without the emotional weight of carrying my family, I had space to focus. I spoke up more in meetings. I stopped apologizing before making a point. A few months later, my manager asked me into his office and offered me a promotion. Higher pay, more responsibility, trust. I walked back to my desk with my hands shaking, not from fear, but from the realization that this version of my life had been waiting for me all along. From a distance, I watched my family adapt. My parents moved into a smaller rental, the kind they used to dismiss when driving past. Jason downsized his life in ways he never thought he would. The kids learned what no sounded like. The world they built on comfort and assumption narrowed, not because I pushed it, but because the safety net was gone. They blamed me for a while. I heard it through relatives, through social media posts that never said my name, but made sure the message was clear. I let it pass. Their words didn't pay my rent. Their anger didn't define my worth. What surprised me most was the absence of regret. I felt sadness, yes. Grief for the house I grew up in. Grief for the family I believed I had. But I didn't feel guilty anymore. I hadn't destroyed anything. I had simply stopped pretending that love meant unlimited access to my life. One night, sitting alone in my apartment, I thought about the airport again. Not with anger, not even with pain, but with clarity. That moment didn't change my family. It revealed them. And it revealed me too. I wasn't the selfish daughter they accused me of being. I was a woman who finally chose herself without apology. Family, I learned, is not measured by how much you give until you have nothing left. It's measured by respect, by honesty, by whether your presence is valued, even when your wallet is closed. Saying no did not make me cruel. It made me whole. If you've listened to this story from the beginning to the end, I want to hear from you. Did this story resonate with you? Did it make you uncomfortable, angry, or relieved? Tell me in the comments whether you like this story and what kind of stories you want me to share next. Stories about family boundaries, financial manipulation, personal growth, or something else entirely? And if you want to hear more real emotional stories from women who found their voice after years of silence, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. There are so many more stories waiting to be told, and one of them might sound a lot like yours.